Welcome to Math 3410. I'm going to go over the class orientation and the syllabus for this class. So as you can see, your main page is the weekly layout for your expectations in this course. So in week one of your assignments, and it's worth points, so remember that, is to read your Xi book right here. It's also to take the syllabus quiz and to take this quiz on the data collection. Okay. Each week you're going to have a Xi book reading. So in week 2, this is your Xi book, and it's not just readings, it is activities, and in some instances your homework as well. You can have multiple homework assignments, so there's homework for this Xi book here. There's also homework in the form of a quiz. For your Xi book, your activities, participation, homework, you're allowed unlimited attempts generally, whereas in the actual quizzes or homeworks through Canvas, such as this one, you're allowed generally 2 attempts, and your average score is recorded. Okay, so you'll have different assignments due each week. Generally 3 or 4 assignments that you have to complete each week. Okay. So in week 2, you have your reading, activities, homework through the Xi book. You have a quiz to take, and generally the first thing I would do is to do the Xi book readings, activities, and homework. Then progress to the other items. Okay, and then in week 2, you have a writing assignment or discussion that just asks you what's going on with this graph. Okay. In week 1, everything is due on the 11th because people are still logistically getting organized in this course. We have some students that might be adding a little bit late, so for week 1, your assignment due date's on the 11th, whereas in week 2, it's more staggered, and that's generally what you should expect. It's just week 1 is a little bit of an odd week. Okay. Before we go through some of the items in each week, let's go through the syllabus. Okay. So I'm going to announce my office hours in the second week. You're free to email me at any time. And generally, I'm expecting my office hours will be on Wednesday and Friday around lunchtime, and the specifics will be posted later. Reserve the right to change that just a little bit. And you can reach me in my office or virtually during that time. Okay. So your required textbook is a Xi book. This is a bit different than in other sections of 3410, but this is to cater to the online environment. Okay. As this is an online course, please, I encourage you to reach out to me and to ask any questions you need. So, I anticipate there'll be a lot of correspondence that's virtual, so just send me an email. Some things that I want you to know when you email me is that I have a lot of other service items and logistical things I need to take care of. Sometimes there are a lot of emails coming in during the semester. So please know that a response can take 1 to 2 days approximately. And if you email me on Friday, like at night, I've already left the office. And so I won't be checking my email until Monday because I have family commitments. Okay. One important thing to note is that many of your homework assignments to give you greater flexibility are due on the weekend. So if you need a response before Monday, before your homework is due, I encourage you to start your homework early. Okay. When you email me, I want to be able to help you to the fullest extent possible. And so something that's really useful is a screenshot of the question. Okay, just take a screenshot, attach it in the email. I also need to know what class you're in. And sometimes your name or W number can be really useful. So just put those things somewhere in your email. But of all the things, the screenshot is the most important. Okay. Approximately the course coverage is going to be these items, and I hope throughout the course of this you'll see the application of statistics and probability and math that you can use in your everyday careers. Okay. Okay. For this class, this is a little bit. This applies a little bit more to your project here. But for your project, you're welcome to use any of these softwares. But we're going to be using Python mainly in the demonstrations and things that you might use in your zybook a little bit. And it's not super intensive in Python, so if you've never used Python, don't worry, this course is still 100% for you. It's just teaching you a little bit of the basics of Python for probability and statistics and its applications. Okay, and mainly that's in the zybook, and you will need some form of software for your project. Okay. All of your exams are going to be held online, and we will be using online proctoring for that. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Before I move on to exams, I should mention those weekly readings, homeworks, and activities that are in your zybook. That counts for 20% of your grade. Right here. Counts for 20% of your grade. Another 20% of your grade comes from the weekly quizzes, in which you generally have 2 attempts and your average score is recorded. You have a project that's worth 10%. You have various check-ins for your project. Then you submit it towards the end of the semester. You have 2 exams, each worth 15%. And then a final exam worth 20%. So notice the exams are worth almost as much as the final exam. The zybook's readings and activities, as well as the weekly quizzes that you take, they're worth as much as your final exam. So all these other items here, I want to point out, are worth almost as much as your final exam. Okay. For your exam, I'll give you a review for your exams, but not your final exam. So just keep that in mind. Okay. For your homework, there are 2 forms of homework, the zybook and your weekly homework. Okay. There is a late penalty of 5% per day. Okay, so keep that in mind. Your zybook, you need and are required to have a zybook subscription. It's 20% of your grade. After the semester ends, your access to zybooks goes away. So one thing that the publishers encourage is for you to download and save via PDF anything that you want on the zybook. Okay, and here's how your grades are calculated. And now let's jump in to a little bit more of the course. Okay. So I mentioned your zybooks, they're worth 20%. So for example, in this very first week, you have readings and activities, and when you click on this, you'll need to enroll in your subscription with zyBooks. But here it starts you with your reading. And this is a little bit of not just probability and statistics, but also its applications. So one of the applications is data science. So we're going to start off with why statistics is important for data science. And for me, the two terms are kind of redundant. It's statistics for statistics is what this says to me. But that's just a little bit of a bias. So just ignore I said that. But this is your textbook, and you can see that there's going to be activities that you're graded on. So, you'll be asked to go through this animation and learn from some of the animations that are provided in the zyBook. Okay. Then you'll have some participation activities as well. Okay. So this is the very first section. There are several sections in this course. In fact, many that you'll have to read through. Okay, so this is just a little bit about using statistical computing, and we're going to use Python. Okay, and anytime it says data science, absolutely it's data science, but it's also Python for statistics. Okay. Okay, so your reading continues in this way, and you're going to have some participation activities where you use Python. So the main use of Python is going to be in the zyBooks and in your project. You're welcome to use other software for your project, but in your zyBook you'll need to use Python. Okay, there will not be too many. There will not really be other activities except for your project where you need Python. Okay, so this Python environment, you can start it right here online in your reading of these books. Okay, so here's a little bit of this, and this first part is a lot about Python, but then we move on to the statistics and probability in the later sections. Okay. Okay. So this is what will earn you credit, and there'll be generally a few labs and things that you'll complete, and the lab will be similar to like what's here, where you have this activity or exercise right here. Okay, but this is your reading for week 1. Okay. Something else that you'll have is you'll have a quiz on a data collection, and this data collection quiz is very similar to some of the material that's covered in this zyBook in its week 1. Let's go to the student view. Okay, and there's some things I'd like to show you. So when you take this syllabus quiz, for example, and you're welcome to have your syllabus open while you take this quiz. It's just some things that are in the syllabus. So notice that's the right choice here. And some of these are multiple selection. So select all answers that apply. So I'm going to select that one and that one. Okay. And here, this is another multiple selection. Okay. I'm going to select that one and that one. Then I'm going to submit this quiz. Okay. And I'm going to submit it anyway. Okay. So notice I got that right. So I got all full points. Okay. In this one, I got no points in the second question. And that's because I selected an incorrect answer and a correct answer. So if I select incorrect answers, they're worth negative points. It takes away the points for the correct answer. Okay. Okay. In this third one, I got only 1.6 points, and I got 2 answers correct. Well, what happened? Well, I got 2 answers correct, but 1 incorrect. Okay. So the incorrect answer was worth negative points. Because I got 2 correct, I got some points. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, when you take these tests and these quizzes, they're multiple selection, so you should be careful of what you do select. Okay. Now, in this data collection quiz, notice that there's no time limit due for this, so you can take your time on these quizzes. Here I have some slides, a little video that you can watch, or if you feel confident in taking the quiz from the Xi book readings, you can do that. But here, notice it's a multiple selection. Okay, so you have that same issue here. Okay, and so here's a description of a data collection that was performed, and you need to answer these questions. Okay. There are other questions as well. Let's go to the main page here. In the second week, there's this assignment here, and I already left student view, but it asks you to read through and select, a graph and comment on just 2 things that you notice. Any of these 2 bullets. You don't need to do all of them. Okay. In other weeks, you'll have multiple quizzes. So here there's 2 of them, counting in probability and probability rules. And here you have a Xi Books reading. Okay. And if I click on that, it will take me to the Xi book reading. Okay. So here it's going to talk about how you can calculate probability via sample spaces and having a defined event. Okay, so it's going to talk about experiments here that you can perform. It's going to talk about properties of sets, okay, which are events. And it's going to have some participation activity for you, okay, as you read through it. Okay, then I can go through my next section, and it gives me more about how I can count and how things work with some demonstrations. So this is illustrating the differences between permutations and combinations. Okay. So the course is going to continue this way. Okay. Then in week 7, you'll have your first exam. Okay, and that's still a little tentative. There's one other thing I want to show you, which is this course has a project, and for your final project, you're asked to analyze a data set of your choosing. So I have some suggestions on how to select your data set, but basically here are places you can get data sets, and I make sure that the type of analysis or statistical method is suitable based on the type of variables that you have and also your objective. And I didn't have the objective stated here. That would be a 4th column. Okay, and then you're graded on these components, and generally most people use Python in a Google Colab, and you're welcome to use the AI to help you with this project. Okay, but for your submission, I just want about a 2-page technical paper, okay, on your data analysis. Okay, and it should have these items. Okay, so that's just a little bit more about your project for this course. Okay, thank you very much. And you'll notice that the modules on the main page will increase and populate as the course goes on. It's a pleasure to have you in Math 3410.